of learners, that culturally you may well get an entirely, a very broad mix of individuals, whether that be from Somalian communities or whatever.
Yeah.
Does this type of model take account of their learning styles and how they might proceed and progress in a slightly different way? So not their output when they're at the input stage.
I think it does. I think what it does is, because there's so much emphasis on relationship building and trust and open communications at the very beginning, so it's building on that. I think within that it embraces cultural difference and it can be extremely diverse, and even the way that it's presented is diverse, and the way that they can achieve their objectives is diverse. So I think it can suit many types of cultures.
So when you're
going to be an agreement on certain things.
So when you're at the planning stage of your curriculum, your scheme of work, things like that,
yeah.
Are you at that point trying to take into consideration these things and thereby tailoring it to meet the needs of...
A holistic teacher would do that, yeah, definitely. She would look at her learners first, so start with her learners first, and then plan from her learners' knowledge.
Okay, thanks.
But there is an end result.
Jackie, you say this year you're letting students set their objective and decide assessment methods.
Yeah.
Is there not a risk that they will choose an assessment method that they are comfortable with and they will stay within their comfort zone?
Well, because I know them so well now, I would see through that immediately. So that's not something I've done at the beginning of the year. It's something I've done at the end of a 2-year course, where I know them so well that I trust them, and I know my learners won't take the easy route. Because they're at the end of a 2-year course. They may have taken the easy route at the beginning, so it wouldn't have been appropriate at the beginning. So it is appropriate now for them, and I offered them a range. I didn't offer them a completely free hand. I offered them a choice, and that choice was appropriate. Whatever method they delivered it in, whether it was a poster or a prezi.
So they couldn't do for the whole year just posters?
No.
That's what I was getting at.
They couldn't do that. No, that wouldn't be suitable. But yeah, it's about knowing your learners, which I think it helps. Anything else?
So, are you able to talk, you've discussed the models in quite some depth, are you able to now frame them in a couple of specific educational contexts? So it's clear that you understand how they work within your own. Are you able to articulate how it might operate in, for instance, community-based learning or adult learning or offender-based learning?
I think the holistic approach suits community-based learning, and I recognise that in what was said earlier, in the fact that the students could be setting their own objectives, and the freedom and the creativity within that community-based learning is evident in the holistic one. With the product one, I would say that was more based, you could link that very much to learning in prisons and education in prisons, because they haven't got the time scale which we are lucky enough to have. There's a quick turnaround in prisons like that, because they come and they go so quickly. So I feel that there might be more of an end result to achieve, which is getting them back out into employment and upskilling them in using the product model.
How do you account for the fact that in secondary school the model that is predominantly used is that product-orientated one? We've got quite clear, tight objectives. Can you think of any political or economic drivers that rationalise why that's still like it?
Well, because at the moment, the way it stands at the moment is it's all about I'm not in education in secondary school at the moment. The way I feel about it is it's driven by the product. It's driving the education system because they want them to get better qualifications, better careers, pay more taxes, and contribute to society in a whole. And
What about the schools? So that's at a quite a macro level. What about how the schools are individually managing programs and doing things like switching between, bringing on new BTEC programs, GCSE
They
equivalencies and things like
they
that?
are taking them on
Why are they doing that?
because we want to produce a world-class workforce. As you know, that's what the UK is striving to do.
Yes.
Also because there's a will to create some competition, and you don't have like one institution that delivers everything. And by creating those products, you enable the market to open and have other players.
And they could be. I mean, they're keeping children in education longer now. Are they keeping them in there longer because there's no jobs? There's nowhere for them to go? Or, are they keeping them in there longer because it's been proven that they're leaving schools with nothing to offer because they've been learning in this way? So they are moving towards more BTEC qualifications in school. I know that for a fact.
Stick a cynical hat on for just a second. I know you're not. But do you think that if you're ahead of a secondary school, what might be a rationale towards shifting some of the GCSEs towards a more vocational route? Yes, there are lots of merits to it, but
what? They're going to achieve numbers. They're going to achieve more. So, because there's pass rate, merit rate, distinction rate, so they're going to get everybody passing, less achieving merits and distinctions, but the figures are going to look good because they've all gone through it. It's the easy route, maybe.
And do we do that in FE?
Take an easy route? Wow. I don't.
Do we, collectively, as institutions?
No.
And it's not a yes or no. Do you think colleges are increasingly being driven by numbers because of downward pressure from
they're pressured
Ofsted
they're
and
pressured from funding, clearly, yeah. And the fact that we're having, at the moment, we know, we've got less teaching hours, but more to teach with less money. So, yeah, we're all being pressurised at the moment.
And how are the awarding bodies responding to these external pressures? So is your curriculum as set by the awarding body fit for purpose?
When it's scrutinised, they say it is.
What about you? Do you think it's fit for purpose?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because I know how much my learners have developed and I know how much they achieved during the time.
But is it always like that? Because I know a lot of people talk about kids that come out with certificates, but their coursework's been basically written for them. They haven't possibly learned.
My students have done 800 hours work placement,
but that's
and they
your.
have to pass.
What I'm saying is, it's not possibly. It's not always like that. So is there sometimes an issue?
Well, on the bigger picture, there could be an issue. But having gone through vocational training, higher education, and I'm now teaching, it's worked for me, and I'm a product of this holistic method. And I don't see myself as a failure. I see myself as...
I did a BTEC as well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
So I think it's worked for me, but if you're saying that we're producing a lot of students that come out with very little knowledge, the fact that they've been in education for 2 years, they've improved their social skills, they've improved their, their emotional awareness, they're probably more ready for work than they ever were 2 years before. If we're just keeping them to just make them more mature adults, I think that benefits them. The added value thing that Mike talks about continuously,
Knowing now what you know about models of curriculum design, is there anything you will do differently over the summer?
Yes.
What?
When I look at my students, I will continue to review the learning activities, and I'm always reflecting on Bloom's, always. I think that's a good standpoint for teachers to start with Bloom's. But instead of starting with the lower level, I start with the higher level of learning and progress from there. So I've kind of changed the way I structure my lessons now, and it's based upon those stepping stones of learning. But what I used to do was start off with the basics of the recall in the listing, and now I don't. I leave that behind. So my expectation as a teacher in my design and planning has got higher.
And if you could offer one piece of advice to an NQT who's never written a scheme of work, what would it be?
Wow, it would be creative and take risks and try new technology and embrace difference, and don't think you know it all, because you really don't. There's still more things to learn.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.